You're listening to The Bible Guys, a podcast where a couple of friends talk about the Bible in fun and practical ways.
Good morning, good morning. We talk the whole night through. Good morning to you and you and you. Hey, good morning, everybody.
Good job, Chris.
Welcome to the Bible Guys.
Good job, Chris.
It is Thursday, and I just realized I had not sung good morning all week long.
Yeah, a lot of times you bring it in on Wednesday.
Yeah, well, this
so
week
you kind of bobbed and weaved this week and surprised us.
Yesterday was the jingle of Happy Days.
Yeah, it was so good.
Was it, though?
So good.
Yeah, I couldn't even get the tune. I couldn't get the key. I was stumbling around. Should have listened to it and studied it and, practiced it and rehearsed it and all that. Anyway, hey, today we have a great segment because Desiree is committed to making sure that our listeners get just the best news available.
Yes.
And so our trusted source is the Babylon Bee.
Absolutely. Only the finest news.
Yes.
For our people. And today we are reading one. It's a warning to some. Some you need to be warned.
Yeah, I have to tell you,
it's a testimony about how difficult life can be. If you're going through, let me just read it. You testify afterwards. If you're going through a tough time today,
I was just going to say I could have written this.
Just know that you are not alone.
Yes.
Right. That's all. Here's the article. Devastating. This man is wearing socks, and he just stepped in a little wet spot on the kitchen floor.
Yes.
You hate that, don't you?
It's one of my worst pet peeves in the world.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Local man Aiden Jackson suffered a devastating blow earlier today after he stepped in a little wet spot on the kitchen floor while wearing socks. Sources say the event has ruined his day and perhaps his life. Ew, my feet are squishy and damp now, said the man helplessly as the cruel liquid soaked into his socks.
Cruel liquid.
Why would a good God allow such a thing to happen?
Wow.
That's about as bad as it gets, honestly, said Stacy Jackson, Aiden's wife. I wear slippers in the kitchen myself to avoid just such a sort of thing. Experts say that the emotional damage of stepping in a puddle of water while wearing socks is even worse than that of treading barefoot on a pile of Legos. And about the same as having a piece of popcorn stuck between your teeth with no way to get it out.
Wow.
This is devastating for him, said Bradley Nelson, an expert. He'll have to go change his socks now. So annoying. At publishing time, Jackson's day had gotten even worse after realizing the wet spot in the kitchen was cat pee.
Oh, no. Oh, no. That really hits home for me. I have two cats.
Yeah, there you go. But being wet is one of your least favorite things on the planet.
Yeah, so I have to clarify. So wet socks are the worst. Like nothing worse than like wearing wet clothes, like wet underwear. Are you kidding me? It's the worst.
It's the worst.
However, the only caveat is this. If I'm out in the rain, I can't stand it. But if I have a hat on, I'm actually fine with getting wet. Because it's actually the feeling of water running down my scalp and the hair getting wet and everything else. If I have a ball cap on and I'm running in the rain and I'm like, well, it is what it is, I'm actually not that irritated. I'm irritated that I'm wet, but nothing nearly like if I don't have a hat on. Not even close. Yeah. The other things are just like a really big irritation. And the socks thing, buddy, that'll get you in a bad mood real quick.
Wow.
You're walking through the kitchen, you step where like a thing of ice was, and all of a sudden it's like I literally have to stop all things. And I'm like, I'll be back. And I have to go upstairs and immediately change my socks. There's no way I'm going to let it dry.
It'll just ruin your day.
It'll put me in a bad mood for like the next half an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, I hate it.
Okay.
It's really bad.
So people make fun of me sometimes because I basically have one wardrobe. Yes. And it always looks like I'm either going on a fishing trip or a safari, right? That's it.
It's funny.
All of it. The only alternative is that I have jeans sometimes. But I buy all clothes that dry very quickly.
Yes.
And they're all travel stuff, right? So, one, I'm not very fashion forward. I don't know if you've noticed that. So fashion's not a thing for me. So I buy based on practicalities, and I travel so much. I'm gone so often that I just want something that's going to be comfortable on a plane. That is, I can take the layers on and I'm wearing a vest right now. Take the layers on, take the layers off, roll up the sleeves, and everything dries really fast. So even my socks, I try to buy socks that dry quickly.
Oh, really?
Yeah, all that kind of stuff.
So in other words, all that means if you step in a little puddle of water...
all that stuff, everything dries quick. So
everything dries quick.
Oh, well, it's just... And this came to pass.
Yeah. Well, not me, buddy. I am with this guy. There's an article. There's a picture of a guy holding his face like this.
Yeah. He looks like he's about ready to cry.
He's devastated. His whole life has been turned upside down. The best part about this article is he said, "Why would a good God allow such a thing to happen?" It's so great.
Well, talking about a devastated man whose whole life has been turned upside down.
Ooh.
We're about to read where
Nebuchadnezzar's
King
life
Nebuchadnezzar
is about to turn on its head.
And God square off, right?
Yeah.
So, remember yesterday we read about he builds an idol?
Yes.
And it kind of represents him. He wants everybody to bow down to it.
90 feet tall. We never talked about that.
Yeah, it was 90 feet tall.
9-story building.
Yeah.
That is a heck of a statue of gold.
Yeah, it must have been well built because it was only 9 feet wide. 90 feet tall, 9 feet wide. That's really impressive construction.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Wow. 9 feet wide.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it had like a prop rod or something.
It must have had something in there.
Wow. Or maybe wires or rope or something.
Yeah. So he was kind of thinking of himself pretty highly.
Mm-hmm.
And he sees God do this miracle for Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And then he says, okay, from now on, nobody gets to make fun of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's God. It's the same as what he did for Daniel.
Right.
Right? And he doesn't embrace the God. He just acknowledges their God. Right? That's what happens. He doesn't embrace their God. But he does say, okay, nobody's allowed to say anything bad about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego's God because no God rescues like their God. So he kind of adds the God of the universe to his pantheon of gods, right? Is what he does. So here's what it says. You just turn the page again because these are opportunities for Nebuchadnezzar to just change his life and encounter the true and living God. You turn the page to chapter 4 and it says, King Nebuchadnezzar sent this message to the people of every race and nation and language throughout the world. Peace and prosperity to you. I want you all to know about the miraculous signs and wonders of the Most High God has performed for me. How great are his signs and how powerful his wonders. His kingdom will last forever and his rule through all generations. I, Nebuchadnezzar, was living in my palace in comfort and prosperity, but one night I had a dream that frightened me, and I saw visions that terrified me as I lay in my bed. So I issued an order calling all the wise men of Babylon so they could tell me what my dream meant. When all the magicians and enchanters and astrologers and fortune tellers came in, I told them the dream, but they could not tell me what it meant. At last, Daniel came in before me, and I told him the dream. He was named Belteshazzar after my God, and the spirit of holy gods is in him. I said to him, Belteshazzar, chief of the magicians, I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in you, and that no mystery is too great for you to solve. Now tell me what my dream means. While I was laying in my bed, this is what I dreamed. I saw a large tree in the middle of the earth, and the tree grew very tall and strong, reaching high into the heavens for all the world to see. It had fresh green leaves, and it was loaded with fruit for all to eat. Wild animals lived in its shade, and birds nested in its branches. All the world was fed from this tree. Then as I lay there dreaming, I saw a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven. The messenger shouted, cut down the tree and lop off its branches, shake off its leaves and scatter its fruit, chase the wild animals from its shade and the birds from its branches. But leave the stump and the roots in the ground, bound with a band of iron and bronze and surrounded by tender grass. Now let him be drenched with the dew of heaven, and let him live with the wild animals among the plants of the field. For 7 periods of time, let him have the mind of a wild animal instead of the mind of a human. For this has been decreed by the messengers, it is commanded by the holy ones, so that everyone may know that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world. He gives them to anyone he chooses, even to the lowliest of people. Belteshazzar, that was the dream that I, King Nebuchadnezzar, had. Now tell me what it means, for none of the wise men in my kingdom can do so. But you can tell me, because the spirit of the holy gods is in you. Upon hearing this, Daniel, also known as Belteshazzar, was overcome for a time, frightened by the meaning of the dream. Then the king said to him, Belteshazzar, don't be alarmed by the dream and what it means. Belteshazzar replied, I wish the events foreshadowed in this dream would happen to your enemies, my lord, and not to you. The tree you saw was growing very tall and strong, reaching high into the heavens for all the world to see. It had fresh green leaves and was loaded with fruit for all to eat. Wild animals lived in its shade, and birds nested in its branches. That tree, your majesty, is you. For you have grown strong and great. Your greatness reaches up to heaven, and your rule to the ends of the earth. And then you saw a messenger, a holy one, coming down from heaven, saying, cut down the tree and destroy it, but leave the stump and the roots of the ground bound with a band of iron and bronze and surrounded by tender grass. Let him be drenched by the dew of the heaven. Let him live with the animals of the field for 7 periods of time. This is what the dream means, your majesty, what the Most High has declared will happen to my lord the king. You will be driven from human society. You will live in the fields with the wild animals. You will eat grass like a cow, and you will be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses. But the stump and roots of the tree were left in the ground. This means that you will receive your kingdom back again when you have learned that heaven rules. King Nebuchadnezzar, please accept my advice. Stop sinning and do what is right. Break from your wicked past and be merciful to the poor. Perhaps then you'll continue to prosper. But all these things did happen to King Nebuchadnezzar. 12 months later, he was taking a walk on the flat roof of the royal palace in Babylon. As he looked out across the city, he said, "Look at this great city of Babylon. By my own mighty power, I have built this beautiful city as my royal residence to display my majestic splendor." And while these words were still in his mouth, a voice called down from heaven, "O King Nebuchadnezzar, this message is for you. You are no longer ruler of this kingdom. You will be driven from human society. You will live in the fields with the wild animals, and you eat grass like a cow. 7 periods of time will pass while you live this way until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses." In that same hour, the judgment was fulfilled, and Nebuchadnezzar was driven from human society. He ate grass like a cow, and he was drenched with the dew of heaven. He lived this way until his hair was as long as eagle's feathers, and his nails were like bird's claws. After this time had passed, I, Nebuchadnezzar, looked up to heaven. My sanity returned, and I praised and worshipped the Most High and honored the one who lives forever. His rule is everlasting. His kingdom is eternal. All the people of the earth are nothing compared to him. He does as he pleases among the angels of heaven and among the people of the earth. No one can stop him or say to him, "What do you mean by doing these things?" When my sanity returned to me, so did my honor and glory and kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out. I was restored as head of my kingdom with even greater honor than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and glorify and honor the King of heaven. All his acts are just and pure, and he is able to humble the proud.
Man.
What a story, dude.
I love the way that is written, don't you?
Oh, yeah.
It's Nebuchadnezzar who is telling a story of the past.
It's his own testimony.
It's his own testimony, but then he brings you into it as if it's happening real time.
Yeah.
Because he says, and then this is what happened, and then this, and then he goes back to reminding us that this is something of the past, because he says, then my sanity was restored.
Right.
And man, what an unbelievable, wild, and obscure story. I've never heard this in a sermon, by the way. Have you ever heard this particular chapter in a sermon?
Yes. Yeah.
You have, really?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Wow.
I heard one of the old leaders of our previous movement preach on it. It's
really?
phenomenal. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It was a great message.
Yeah, yeah. And so this is a wonderful and yet horrific thing to even imagine, right?
Yeah.
The wonderful part of it is that, man, God can choose whenever he wants to demonstrate his power, and it's not held back by any power. So Nebuchadnezzar, I mean, he walks around on his flat roof and says, "Is there anybody greater than me?"
Right.
And then all of a sudden, a voice comes down. A voice, by the way.
Yeah, from heaven.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Because there's not too many times in the entire Bible that happens. And then the voice almost word for word repeats what Daniel said a year earlier. And so can you imagine a year goes by? You're probably scared at first if you're Neb.
Right.
And all of a sudden a year, you've forgotten about it. You're walking around in your own little,
Look
power.
what I've done.
Look what I've done. And all of a sudden this voice comes down and you're like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Daniel did tell me that a year ago.
Until you learn that the Most High rules over the kingdoms of the world and gives them to anyone he chooses.
Anyone he chooses.
Yeah. So I can remember when I was young, probably a teenager, maybe in my early 20s, and, I like archaeology, I like history, I like all that stuff. And Nebuchadnezzar is one of the greatest kings in all of history. So even outside the Bible, there's a ton about him, right? And was one of the first after the Egyptians. Like the Assyrians were big and tough, but they weren't like on the same scale as the Egyptians. And then Nebuchadnezzar comes in and takes, he's the one of the first great world conquerors, took over all the world that he knew of at the time, and defeated just about everybody. So historically, he's just so powerful. I thought, surely 7 years
Right.
that he's out of his mind and then he's restored back to his throne, that has to have been in history somewhere. So I started digging around looking to see if it was. And there's no direct thing in history that says he lost his ever-loving mind for 7 years, right? But there are a couple things. So I had to look it back up again. But I remember these. As soon as I saw them, I remembered. So one thing, ancient historical records are extraordinarily selective about what they say about kings. Right. But there is in the prayer of Nabonidus, which was in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there's this description of King Nabonidus, which is the last king of Babylon, not Nebuchadnezzar. But it was Nebuchadnezzar's kids and nephews that wind up taking over the kingdom, and while he was out, and then he gets restored, and then after that, his nephew takes back over, and then the Babylonian kingdom gets wiped out by the Medes and Persians. So it could have been highlighting he was the last great king of Babylon. And it mentions in the prayer of Nabonidus, it mentions that this king was struck with a skin disease by God for 7 years until he humbled himself and prayed and was healed. So it may have been that it was recognizing he had some kind of disease for 7 years, and he had to repent from God in order to be healed. So there's that. It could have just been that it was wrong, because this isn't a Bible thing. It's just a historical thing. It could have been wrong on the facts, but 7 years, the last great king of Babylon, given a disease by God until he repented. That's all in the prayer of Nabonidus that was found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. Then there's Berossus in the 3rd century BC, so 300 years before Jesus. This Babylonian priest writes in Greek that Nebuchadnezzar became ill towards the end of his life and left his son to govern. So we do know that there was this illness at the end of his life, and though it's vague and brief, it does echo some kind of a thing. So you have the prayer of Nabonidus recognizes there was this 7-year period in Nebuchadnezzar's life that he was under judgment from God with some kind of disease. And then Berossus, a Babylonian priest in 300 BC, says, he was so sick he had to hand off some of the leadership for a while. Well, we know that he comes back and he only rules for a short amount of time after this time, and then it's the end of it. So I think it's kind of interesting that even historically there seems to be a hint that something bad happened to Nebuchadnezzar, and it lasted for like a 7-year period. So this is what actually happened. Isn't that neat?
It's very neat.
I love that stuff.
When the Bible is able to be verified, and it
outside of
itself, right? And so it's verified with every new discovery with archaeology, especially in the Middle East, and then almost primarily in the Middle East, and then also with every single historical record that there's nothing that conflicts, right? There's nothing. Think about all the writings of history that exist in the world, right? And then and the things that the scriptures talk about are able to be coupled with history and their timelines. They match up. Everything matches up, which is amazing. And some things match up, and we've only discovered them in our lifetime. Right. Some things you're like, I can't remember off the top of my head, but wasn't something just discovered? And it was like, no way. And it verified what the Bible said. I can't remember what it was. Maybe I'll look it up and share with it. Share the next.
I follow archaeology a lot, and every few months stuff comes out of Israel in particular that highlights particularly they're digging around the city of David right now. There's a lot of things that have come up that seem to point towards the ancient fathers and the ancient Israel and all that kind of stuff. It comes up all the time. So
that's great.
I'm curious to see what it is that you just recently read.
So where are the sermons in here? So the sermons in here are...
There's a God in heaven that appoints kings and takes away their power.
That's right. Yep. Well, it's also recognizing that, yes, if you're the provider of your family, or you're the builder of your business, or you're the one that accomplishes, you're the one that earns a paycheck, yes, of course that is you who does it. But you have to understand that it is God who allows you to do it,
right?
And God alone.
Yeah.
So God's the one who gives you the ability. He gives you your health. He gives you your intelligence. He gives you your, capabilities, all that, your giftedness, and so God allows you to do all those things. And so many times when we talk about, recognizing that everything is God's, we are to give back to God.
Yeah.
God is the giver of all things.
Yeah.
People sometimes, puff out their chest like Nebuchadnezzar, and they walk around on their flat roofs and they say, "What are you talking about? This was me. I've worked hard. Nobody gave me a hand up." Right? I'm the one. I'm self-built. I'm self-made. I'm the one that has done this. And so stop asking me to recognize that it's somebody other than me. Stop asking me to give back to God, whether financially or in service or volunteerism, because I'm the one.
Yeah.
And God's reminding Nebuchadnezzar and us that it's actually him.
Yeah. We just came through. We're recording the weekend in the week right after Easter right now. So this will play in another week or two, and we will have had a staff meeting by then with the whole staff coming up. And after any big week, we just had over 14,000 people participate live with us in 22 services, and we saw over 1,000 professions of faith. It was an unbelievable weekend.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Like a high water mark, right? And so in all of those staff meetings after the after big days, big baptism days, big salvation days, big attendance days, I'll usually give a very similar speech that God is doing these amazing things among us. Mm-hmm. Of course, he's using us, right? We give him the very best we have. We work hard. We plan well. We do all the things we can do. But then God chooses to send the increase, right? God does these things. And so we have to stay humble because God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. And we have to stay holy. Mm-hmm. God opposes those who choose to compromise with the world, but he gives grace and power to those who choose to be holy people, walk away from the world. He said, I'll be like a father to you. You'd be like children to me, right? When he comes out from among them and be separate. And then we need to be helpful, building others up, encouraging others, right? Those three things all the time. And so as God is blessing us, one of the things you and I are constantly working at with our team is we got to stay holy, humble, and helpful. Holy, humble, and helpful. Yep. And I've mentioned, we just had celebrated our 25th anniversary. And I wanted one of the last songs on that big celebration night to be a song that I listened to. I never told anybody this before the 25th anniversary, that there's a song from Charles Billingsley back in 2000 that he wrote, and it just says, the church is empty, but I just can't go home. So I linger for a moment in the dark all alone. I'm so overwhelmed how your spirit moved, and I'm just glad I was in the room, right? And I just think about how incredible it is that God does things. We did the work that we could do, but then God shows up, and it's just good to be a part of it. And that's the difference, I think, between a king like King Nebuchadnezzar, who says, look what I did, and we're trying to be godly leaders and say, look what God did. We did everything we could do, but look what God did with it. Right? And so it's not that we're just blowing it off and being humble. Oh, look, we didn't do anything. We did a lot. Right? Yeah. We did everything we could do for God.
We worked hard.
We gave him the best sacrifice we could give him. But then look what God did with it. Right? Wow. It's all God. It's not us. We did our part, but God. And so a lot of times I'll pray when I'm praying with the staff, and I'll just say, God, it's amazing to see what you're doing, and we're so glad we get to be a part of it. Yeah. Right?
And by the way, just so a lot of our listeners do attend our church.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't, of course. But for those who do, you listen to that song, is it after every big day?
Yeah, I listen to it after every big day, after every big baptism, after anything really good. It just kind of, when I'm driving home by myself, it's usually kind of my recentering. It always, talking about, we made jokes about you crying all the time. This is almost every time, it still brings tears to my eyes that, it's just good to be in the room when
Yeah.
God does something special.
Yeah, this is what makes Jeff cry.
Yeah, exactly.
This is Charles Billingsley.
Yeah. Well, it's just reminding myself again
I know.
that God did amazing things.
I
Yep.
understand.
Yep.
So that's awesome. So wait, what a great chapter. And
Here's all I know is a little kid from Youngstown and a little kid from Elba, Michigan.
yeah.
We normally don't show up in places like this and see these
Right.
kinds of things,
Right.
apart from God doing amazing things.
That's a great statement right there. So, and we still would have fought. That's so funny. That was so great when you said that the other day. All right. Well, hey, that is our time. And so hopefully we will see you tomorrow on the Bible Guys.